Hey, 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 welcome to Ladyz Talk Podcast on K84. This is Jasmine covering for your host, Laura Christine. Laura, we miss you. We wish you safe travels back home. Again, welcome to Ladyz Talk Podcast, where we have the most inclusive group of women in the Midwest talking about topics that are on our mind. DJ, run that intro.
Ladyz Talk on K84 Podcast.
It's official.
On K84 Podcast.
On today's episode, we're talking about ambitious women, women who seek success, power, and what kind of impact that has on their love life. So I'm going to introduce my partners here. Alex.
Hey, hey.
Amanda.
Hey, guys.
Marissa.
Hi, y'all.
Tracy.
Hey.
All right. Glad to be here with you all today. You know, we have to start with an icebreaker. It's probably not going to be as great as last week's. I'm sorry. But I did put some thought into it.
I'm sure it's fine.
So, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail?
Like anything.
I know.
You can't fail. You got to pick like one thing, right?
I'd probably write novels.
NBA basketball.
Woo!
Okay.
My biggest dream was to start an orphanage and rescue kids from human trafficking.
That is
That's
noble.
awesome. I think for me, sorry, I'm holding up the line. I think that these are going to be two different, well, you said choose one. So actually, I would probably be a professional dancer. I have like no hip coordination, no rhythm.
Oh, okay. So this is like a stretch for you.
This
Okay,
is actually a
so
dream.
she can sing, but she can't dance, you guys.
Unfortunately.
No J-Lo.
God was like, we're not going to do all that. You'd be too much.
Yeah, exactly. He was like, it's not fair for the rest of us. Let's keep
Exact-
her humble-ish.
Ish.
We love it. We love it. I think for myself, I know I would start a business. I don't know what kind of business. It really depends on my mood of the day, but I know I would start a business.
Nice.
Cool.
Businesswoman.
All right, let's get into it. So, again, today's podcast is about ambitious women, women who are seeking success, power, status, opening businesses, and the impact that it has on their love life. So, I do want to recognize that women are multifaceted, right? And there are ambitions outside of just the career, making money, status, and things like that. But I think for the sake of this conversation, we're just going to narrow it down a bit. So I think we should kick it off with just starting to talk about what are some characteristics of these ambitious women or these women in, you know, executive level leadership roles, owning businesses. What do they not look like, but what are they like?
I think confident, I would say. I mean, I don't know. Pretty assertive, very boundaried. That's how I view them.
I definitely think you can't be ambitious if you're not confident.
Yeah.
Right.
You got to be like self-assured for sure.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Because you're going after things that, you know, maybe it's the glass ceiling or naysayers or maybe even yourself may think that you can't do. So having a good level of confidence and knowing like I can go after this and I can obtain this is probably pretty pivotal in that.
Yeah, you have to be fearless. I think you have to overcome a lot of society's lies and where they try to put you in a box. You have to break free of that fear in the back of your head. Am I worth having success? Am I good enough? You know, that lie.
Yeah.
So you have to be fearless, I think, to get to that place.
I think a lot of them are go-getters. I work with a lot of very successful women, and it doesn't mean that they don't have insecurities or that they're,
Right.
you know, not scared, but they're definitely go-getters. And some of them even, I'll prove you wrong. I'll do this because somebody told me I couldn't.
So a little petty or spiteful? I am.
I don't know that they're petty or spiteful. I think that they just want to prove people wrong to show that they can break those boundaries.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I think ambitious women have fears, but they don't like subside to them.
Right. Their behaviors aren't fear based.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. What about stigmas that come to mind
For
or are
ambitious-
placed upon?
for ambitious women.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we all kind of we all kind of know, but I mean,
Yeah.
they're bossy, right?
Yeah.
They're controlling. They're bossy. They're
You said that so much more, I guess, eloquently than I would.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, were
You
you
know.
going to say the other B word?
I was gonna.
Yeah,
say,
I was going to.
say bitchy.
Okay.
I'm trying to keep it PG.
No, and I appreciate that. You know, it's not a family show. Don't let me get to lying. But yeah, I think that there is a stereotype that women who are, assertive and know what they want and will not take shit from you can come off as bitchy, and I'm sure all of us have heard it, whether in our own positions or just growing up in life. Like,
Right.
if a woman says something with the same energy as a male boss would, most of the time she's seen as like, she's judged harshly. Not as much grace is afforded to her just for the simple fact that she is a woman and has the nerve to tell you to get your shit together without coddling you in the process. So,
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's kind of almost understood.
yeah.
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 I feel like it's an unfortunate truth about society in general that puts girls in a box that you have to be this way to be a good female, like submissive and quiet and nurturing and kind. But if the characteristics of a good leader are the opposite, they're more masculine, like outgoing, leadership qualities are not necessarily seen as feminine. And so it's like we're stuck between, I want to be a good female, but I also want to be a good leader. And it's like, how do I be both? Because if you're good at leadership, usually it's like, oh, she's bossy and controlling. No, she's a good leader.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it's like we're not allowed to be both.
Yeah. No, that's fair. We're raised to be the nice girl. Be a nice girl. Do nice things for people. And
Sit
what
down
does
and
it
be
say?
quiet.
Nice girls don't get the corner office. That's a book. I didn't steal
Love
that.
that, yeah.
We'll link it. Something that I wanted to share, and it's probably like a well-known statistic among this room, but for our audience, women are less likely to go after a role in the workplace if they don't check all of the boxes on the qualifications. Whereas a man will be like, that sounds like fun. I can do that.
Well, I've got
I'm going
30%.
to apply.
I've got 3 of those.
Yeah, they're going to apply and they're going to expect that call, right? Whereas we're like, oh my God, you know what? Like, I've only got 3 years of experience. They want 5. Like, why do we do that to ourselves? The cumulative we, maybe not we.
Well, I don't know. I'm guilty of that. I recently landed a role. So before that, I was on the job hunt, and that was not fun at all. But yeah, that was my experience. If I did not meet every single qualification, I was probably not putting my application in.
Yeah, I just assumed, well, they're not even going to consider me
Yeah.
because I don't reach all of those things.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think we have that mindset, whereas men just go for it.
Yeah.
I also think it depends on your field, right? So, like, the field I'm in is a female-dominated field, right? There's not a lot of males in my field. Even in leadership there are, but just therapists in general, like, generally it's a female-dominated field. So I think that also depends, too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Interesting.
No, I like that you brought that up because I didn't even think about that. I work in finance, which is the total
Well, it's the
opposite.
opposite, right.
It's male
Yeah.
dominated, you
right.
know.
And so if I was thinking about putting myself in that position, like if I was on Wall Street or something like that, like if the roles were reversed, because I'm very confident in my field, right? Because I have expertise, I have a
Yeah.
master's degree, I have all these things. Like I know what I'm capable of, so I go
Right.
after it without fear, really. But I wonder if it, for me, in another field, would it be different?
So you're saying if you have 75% of the qualifications in your field, you would feel confident enough to go after something, whereas opposed to, you don't know how you would feel if you were working in a male-dominated industry.
Yeah, I'm sure that I would definitely double take. You know, like I would be like, wait a second. You know?
Yeah, and I think times have changed also because when I started teaching, you were not likely to get a job if you didn't have an education degree, state certification, or both.
Right.
And now, as long as you have a bachelor's degree, you can get hired somewhere.
They need teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to do that anymore. I'm not sure why.
Gee,
No idea.
But and that's also a female. I mean, my point of view, like for the most part, like a female-dominated field as well.
Yeah,
Well,
it
used to be.
It is in the elementaries.
Yeah.
High school is mixed pretty good, but
What about when you get to higher ed, like college?
I had more male professors than female.
I did as
same.
well.
Yeah.
I was going to say that, like, I read somewhere, I heard somewhere there was a study that they surveyed a bunch of men and women, and the women technically had more qualifications that are considered leadership qualities, but they were less likely to consider themselves good leaders. And the men were less qualified with those specific characteristics, but they considered themselves more able to do leadership positions. So somehow along the line of culture and the way we're raised, women are less confident and men are more confident. And I don't know where that came in and how, like the division, like we don't believe in ourselves to rise up to those positions as often.
Right.
Well, think about it when you're growing up as a girl, as a young lady. What are we praised for?
Falling in line.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because when Marissa was talking, it jogged this quote that I heard, and it was something along the lines of, I can't remember it, but it was basically talking about the difference between raising boys and girls, and basically saying like anything that made girls unique were kind of like, they said beat out of them, right? But they were punished for it. By the time they hit 12, most of those behaviors were gone. Where at least in my community and in spaces that I have been, the boys are not held to the same standard, right? So they can walk through that life with that level of I don't want to say ego or arrogance, because I don't want to imply that it is a bad thing that your parents did not constantly like squish you or or kind of dull your confidence. However, I think because they're maybe afforded a little bit more grace and, not held to such a high standard, that they can kind of float through life with that air of confidence. Like, well, I can do all things because that's how I was raised. Where in my upbringing, you got to get it right, get it tight, get it together. You know what I'm saying? Right. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Yeah.
So are like men walking through life with more of a sense of peace about themselves?
That's a good question. I don't know if it's peace about themselves. I don't know if you met these men. I don't think they had peace. But like when it comes to car shopping and things like that, like women buy cars based off of the safety features. Men buy cars off of totally different things, right? And so I think that somehow correlates into this conversation, right? We're thinking probably 10, 12 steps ahead. If we get into a car accident, what are these features that are going to be able to save the life of me and my family? Where men don't operate that way. And I don't want to generalize or anything like that, but this is just what I've read. So I'm not quite sure if it's peace, but I don't even know what to call it.
Privilege.
There we go. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
Damn. Well, I have a few statistics. I don't know if we.
I love me a good old statistic.
We need
All right, feel free to just blur about whatever comes to your mind. But according to S&P Global, women hold 30% of all senior leadership roles, but we make up a majority of the workforce. So we round out 58%.
So very
of the
disproportionate.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting is the word for it. This is something that I thought was interesting, though. At underperforming organizations, so y'all are not killing it, women make up 14% of high potential pools, whereas at high performing organizations they make up 28%. So that number is double at high performing organizations. And also I interpreted high potential pools. I know my company does this where they identify individuals within our organization that they think have high potential and they pour into those people. So that's what I interpreted this as. I don't know if you guys are interpreting it a different way, but I thought that was extremely interesting. Hire you some women.
That is. Yeah. And it's also probably they're high performing because they have that diversity of thought, and that probably plays a part into why they're doing so well.
Yeah, and females' brains, we're wired differently.
Yeah.
A lot of us are very type A. We're very organized. We can do many different things, keep everything situated, And I think that may play a factor into it, too.
I think we're able to collaborate well without having to prove something.
Right.
Whereas I feel like oftentimes men with the masculine energy come in and they want to prove their point or their right or argue their argument for the sake of it. As opposed to listening and collaborating all the time.
Yeah.
This is true. When we were talking earlier about male and female dominated spaces, and I'm sorry, you let me know if I'm jumping ahead in topics, but
I'll lurky you.
please do. My question was, I wonder though if the perception of clients of you, regardless, I guess, of your field, if you're in a male dominated field. For me, I think one of the reasons why I don't apply for every single little thing is because since I work in finance, if I'm trying to help you with your investments, or if I'm, buying structured notes on your behalf or something like that, I want the client to have full confidence in me that I can do that. But sometimes I feel that maybe that is lacking because I am a woman. And so I'm curious, if your clients or your customers' perception of women being in certain roles plays a part into how you approach things too.
Yeah, I think
does
it's
a lot.
I think it's different because males generally handle finances in the household, right? Or for me, that's like my perception. But if you're talking about therapy or like an empathetic person or somebody that you're wanting to get feedback from or someone to process something with, that's females, right? Like they're motherly, they're empathetic, they're caring, and so I don't know.
That's valid. It just depends on the field, I guess.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think
I mean, from my
definitely-
perception, that's
Yeah.
that's how I'm thinking about it.
I think it would have to deal with the different types of fields out there because I handle things totally different in my music studio than I do in my real estate business. And a lot of it has to do with the client that I'm specifically working with at the time.
Right.
And I can tell the second I sit a couple down, okay, this one is the decision maker in the home, and it's not always the male.
Yeah.
I get a good mix of both actually. And so same thing with my music studio. I talk to one parent and I can tell whether they're the decision maker or not based on their responses to me.
I heard this riddle, and it kind of helps test your mind, how your mind works. Like if we have that bias or that stereotype ingrained in us, because a lot of us feel like we're egalitarian or feminist, but it's interesting. Like, I probably gave away the punchline. Okay, so a son and a father get in a car accident, and the son's injured, the father dies. They rush the boy to the hospital. The surgeon's about to operate, and they say, "I can't operate on this child. That's my child." And so, what happened in that situation?
Oh, I think I know that one. The surgeon was the mother, right?
There you go.
The mama was the
automatically,
surgeon.
people usually assume, "Oh, she cheated. This baby belongs to someone else." That's
Yeah.
what I did. I was like, "What?" It messed with my mind. I was like, "Wait a minute,
Clocked
you're
you
right.
bad, huh?
Women can be surgeons too. Why do I automatically assume the surgeon was a male?"
Yeah.
And that made me think, man, maybe I'm not as feminist as I thought. Like, it's ingrained in us to just assume these higher positions are always male. And another example of that is when you were talking about female or male jobs, like I'm in healthcare, and I tried to get my son a job with my company, and he got hired right away because of, who he was, and they know I'm a good worker, but he couldn't find any people that wanted him to be their caregiver because he was male. I thought it was interesting.
Oh,
I was like, but
wow.
why?
Yeah.
He can do all the things I can do. And the patients were like, I don't want a male in my house. I don't feel safe around a male. And I'd rather have a female doing caregiving because they know how to do it right, and they're good at being mothers, so they're good
Very
at...
nurturing.
I'm like, well, I raised him. I know he knows how to do all these things. But it was like, nope, he's a man.
You know
so
what?
that goes
The
on both
man or
sides.
the bear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have parents
The
who call
man.
me and specifically request a female teacher.
yeah.
Really?
Well, and a lot of my clients, they prefer female therapists for whatever reason.
And that's valid, 'cause
Female
I do
and
too.
male. A lot of males prefer female therapists.
Wow.
I think women are more nurturing
Right.
in general, but when my son started daycare, there was a male caretaker there. He wasn't my son's caretaker, but I was like, oh, like, how often do you see a male caretaker at daycare, right? It's very uncommon in my experience, and I don't know how I would have felt him having a male caretaker. He's a boy, so I genuinely don't know, but if it was my daughter, I would feel
Right.
different.
Right.
Yeah, I don't trust men the same way that I trust women
Yeah.
in a bunch of different instances, so I get it.
Yeah. I agree with that. I mean, definitely take care. But yeah, I think I have my own biases as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Not to say it's fair or right, it's just how I feel.
Just
I know
makes you think.
about things I don't want to think about. I'm in sales, and it may still be a male-dominated field. There's some good old
think
boys
so.
out there still. But I feel like when it comes to my clients, my customers, very rarely do I feel like I'm dismissed because I'm a girl. But when it comes to peers within, not so much within my organization, but peers across organizations, very much feel dismissed because I'm a
Really?
female. I'll find, I'll say coworkers loosely because they'll work for a different company, but we
Right.
work in line together, and I'll find them talking to my male counterpart as opposed to talking to me, or if they need something, going to my male counterpart as opposed to going to me.
And I wonder if that's their
frustrating.
own biases.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like their own wiring, the same as how we kind of are, where we like naturally think about males and females in these roles. I wonder if it's their own biases coming through too.
I mean, you're just
You
a little
know-
girl. How can you close a deal?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's interesting.
You know what we were talking about earlier about advertising, how they're brainwashing us to believe what they want us to believe. I was thinking, how do we get these biases? Because I raised my boys to believe in equality, but I asked them if, would you vote for a woman president? Do you think a woman could be a president? And they're like, no, absolutely not. I would not vote for a female. I was like, why? I thought you
I wanna
believed
know
women
why.
are equal. And he's
Yeah.
like, well, yeah, they're equal, but first of all, they have a period. I was like, what? I could not believe my kids would say that. I was like, where did you learn that? That makes us weaker and less trustworthy because we have hormones and we might push that nuclear button. I'm like, where did you learn that?
That is so.
They are getting brainwashed by whatever they're watching on the internet because I didn't teach them that. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, she has a period, she'd be more emotional, but culturally, like, she would be less respected in other cultures. I'm like, okay, I can get behind that maybe, but
Are we trying to kick it with them anyway, though?
I'm like, where did you learn that?
Like, oh, those
But,
are
like-
people anyway?
But like, how do we get brainwashed like this? It's not always just the way you're raised. Like, they still believe completely
yeah.
opposite than what I modeled in front of them and taught them
I
from
think it's
infancy.
societal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very
It's ingrained
societal.
in them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Crazy.
There
Like,
were- oh,
go
sorry,
ahead. No,
go-
you go. Girl, I've been yapping. Take it away.
There were 5 of us growing up. I've got 1 sister, 3 brothers, and all 5 of us are so different. And I almost feel like different generations as well, because 2 of my older siblings are old enough to be my parents, but I'm more similar to them than I am the ones closest to me. And so you sit here and you think, okay, how in the world were we all raised the same or very similarly? I mean, obviously, my parents learned a lot by the time they got to me, right? But yeah, you can raise those kids the exact same way, and they turn out totally different, or don't even agree with the things that you taught them necessarily. So I think there's a lot out there in the media that we are being just inundated with day in and day out, and I think that's why it's so good for people to take a social media break, don't watch the news. I went over a month without watching the news at all, and it was such a sigh of
I
relief.
haven't had the news in like since I was like 15.
I know, right? I don't watch it
Long
much
time.
anymore after that, but I was just like, you don't realize how much that negative end
Yep.
keeps on and keeps on at you. It's just
everything, music that you into. I mean, all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You ever
Yeah.
watch like an older, not even old, like 2010 even show or song from back then? You're like, oh snap!
Yes.
I gotta turn this off.
They were wild
What
and
did
back
they
then.
say? What did they do?
Well, and I read, so oddly enough, I read Mary Kay's book of how her business started, the cosmetic industry. And it's interesting because she started way back before our times. And the things that she went through, and there weren't hardly any females working at all. Like, she was, I think it was less than 20% of women at that time were working at all.
Wow.
And she was in that, less than 20%. And I'm reading this book and I'm just like, oh my gosh, just kept on and kept on because of how different it was back then. So I think times are changing and coming around to get better in terms of equality with women.
Yeah.
But I think we're still being inundated with all that.
That's fair.
Definitely.
And you were also saying, like, what are women raised to believe that gives them value? And I think it's teaching women. Girls are taught young with all the Disney movies, you're a princess and your job is to be rescued. And you're nothing
Yeah.
unless you're loved and unless you can make a family. And so that's a lot of what hinders women from becoming career people, because they're like, my purpose is to give birth and raise children, and I can't do both.
Or they exit their careers
Yeah.
because, yeah.
That whole Disney concept you brought up could have applied to some of our previous topics when we talk about
Yeah.
love and all that stuff. Because
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like,
It's brainwashing.
there are lots of women out there who expect A, B, and C from a man. And it's like, dude, it's not like it is in the movies.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the movies,
Side
it's not
talk.
like that.
Sorry, I'm the
Some
random one, right?
rich beast living in a castle. Like, girl, come on. Come on.
A glass shoe?
Thank you.
But are we going to talk about that? Like how
Yeah.
baby giving?
Oh, I mean, we're gonna talk about whatever you want to talk about, but we will segue to
Yeah.
what kind of men are we attracting, and this is probably a good segue. So, let's go ahead and transition the conversation to relationships. Given our glowing characteristics as ambitious women, what kind of men are we attracting?
I plead the fifth.
She's like, I'm not attracting anybody.
Girl. And if I am, I'm like kicking them off. Get off.
Okay, okay.
You know, I think if you're an ambitious woman who's confident and just going for it at life, the type of man you would attract has to be secure and very likely confident in himself. Because an insecure man, I would assume, would not be cool with all your success.
Would be almost like a turn off or intimidating.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I dated a guy who I could tell was insecure because I was just going for this and going for that and trying out for all these different things. And he was just like, I'm out.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. How is that a turn off? Like,
Well,
I don't think it's as much a turn off as it is scary.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think men,
Yeah.
the Disney princess movies,
Right.
they're
Mm-hmm.
meant to believe that they're here to save you,
Yeah.
rescue
Right.
you.
Mm-hmm.
If they
Okay.
feel like they're contributing less,
Right.
does
Right.
it make them feel like less?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That whole like providing and those
Mm-hmm.
types of characteristics. Yeah.
I
I
have
was-
a, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Why are you sorry? This is your job.
You're right.
You have one job right
I
now.
was like, the host, no. But I was reading about this, and it says in 2013, a study published by the American Psychological Association Journal of, I'm going to, ad-lib
We'll
the rest.
cite you later.
But basically, the study was saying that there are some men who may experience a subconscious blow to their self-esteem when their female partner succeeds, even if they're not in direct competition. And they said, some of those feelings come from feeling upstaged, right? Like, she's doing all these great things, and he can be happy for you and still love you. I don't know if y'all, let me hush on that last part. He can be happy for you and still love you. However, there's probably going to be a bit of him, that feels insecure. And I tried to give just a smidge because I would prefer whoever I'm with is my biggest fan, right? So whatever I do, especially like if we're a partnership, I'm bringing you along with me. But also I'm guilty of being on social media and seeing friends who are hitting milestones in life that I have not yet hit. And I'm not jealous or like envious in a negative way. I'm happy for them, but I'm also like, well, when is it going to be my turn? So I wonder if that's a little bit at play. But also the study said that if they believe in more traditional stereotypes, they may feel insecure about their career and financial success because they assume women prefer a man who has,
Right.
that level of wealthy. And then my last thing, and I'll hush, is that I think sometimes men date for social status. Like if they pull the prettiest woman in the room and, she's on his arm, he's going to feel like that guy. And kind of similar with if she's outdoing him or outpacing him. His friends are going to meet her and they're going to go, oh, she's making more than you. Or, oh, she's doing all this and what are you doing? So, yeah, that's I thought that study was really interesting.
It's funny that you bring that up because when I started my real estate career and really started taking off, other people in my husband's profession were like, man, she's going to make more than you, yada, kind of just giving him a hard time.
Yeah.
And he's like, I hope she does, then I can retire early. Like he is all about it.
Yeah.
But it's funny how many people have brought that up to him, and they're all men. Not one woman
weird.
has said that to him.
Wow.
But so many men have brought that up, thinking that it's going to bother him. And he's like, no, I hope she does. More vacation.
Right, sugar mama.
Yeah.
Yeah. I dated a guy in Texas who, now, I knew better and did not do better. So I'll preface that like this.
Own your mistakes.
He ain't through with me yet, y'all. So I dated him and we ended up kind of like, dissolving the relationship. I don't know why that sounds like some corporate merger that didn't go through. But long story short, when we